What is up, guys? Zan from Playbook GG back with another Friday film study. In this one, we're going to be taking a look at the much talked about matchup in the quarterfinals of the Madden Bowl between Skimbo and Spoto. Before we dive into this video, make sure to subscribe to the channel and hit that notification bell so that you don't miss any of the great tutorials that we've got headed your way here on the Playbook.gg YouTube channel. Welcome back, guys. Now, we're going to be looking at the game that was definitely the most talked about match of the tournament. As always, I am flanked by my man, Ant Cap. Ant Cap, what's going on?
I'm doing great, Zan. Thanks for asking. I'm excited to talk about this game. It was something that was one that resonated to me and a bunch of others as far as the game to talk about for this actual tournament.
And you see right off the jump, we get a first play interception. Ed Reed bagging that Pat Sale. If you guys want to learn how to bag that Pat Sale, just a quick little plug. You can check out our website, www.playbook.gg. We have a nickel 335 guide out that will show you how to shut down some of the most popular route combinations in Madden. Much like the one you're seeing right there, we've got the adjustments for that. And as you see, Spoto looking pretty good here, getting that early stop on defense.
Absolutely. This is a game in which Spoto has some confidence walking into. As far as some context going into this game, they played each other in group stage, and they had a really back and forth battle in which Spoto had a lot of reps against Skimbo in that game to prepare him for this one.
Yeah, and that game we saw in group stage, actually it was Skimbo that was leading off of a pretty fluky, we'll just call it the way it was. It was a fluky pick six in which he threw a seam route to the tight end and it bounced off his hand straight to Deion Sanders. And that put Skimbo up by 2 scores. But then Spoto would end up coming right down the field. He would score, then he'd force an interception, and then he'd score again, and then he actually ended up getting another stop before he ended up winning the game. So coming into this, Spoto knew that he had the bag for Skimbo's gun bunch offense.
Absolutely. That game ended up being 38-31, as you explained. And, you know, the amount of possessions that was in that game, it was definitely not an opportunity where you can hide your offense, win with some run plays. I mean, he ran his plays over and over and over again. So Spoto, you can see gained confidence in that second half to show that he knew the adjustments he wanted to go against Skimbo. So going into this game, it was a really nice strategic cat and mouse game where can Skimbo bring his stuff that he saw diminishing results on at the end of the first game that they played, and how that would look into this game. I think Spoto had all the confidence in the world that Skimbo had to make some adjustments.
We saw right there, taking a look at the lineup, that is actually Spoto's offense. And the thing that really stood out in this tournament, he did not use any route specialist chems.
He didn't. He went with, trips tight end as his main offense, and I think you can get away with that a little bit more, where you can go a little bit with higher players with trips tight end. People in bunch right now are using more of the route specialists because they want to, have a little bit more unique offense. But because of the unique routes that are already in trips tight end, it does give you that opportunity to be a little bit more heavy on better players and not waste your cap on those specialists.
Yeah, those chemistry abilities, particularly the route specialist, can be pretty costly. And when you're not spending, I believe it's like 15 cap for one of those specialists, is that true?
Yeah, 15 cap on that. They vary as far as, different things, whether you're talking about playmaker, whether you're talking about elite or whatnot. But you're basically anywhere from the 15 to 20 range on most of those chems to help yourself out on the offensive side of the ball when you're talking about quarterbacks and all that type of stuff as well.
Yeah, so I mean, when you're not spending 15 extra cap per player, and a lot of these guys run 3 goon wide receivers, as you saw, I believe you had Julio, Odell, and Moss, you're saving 45 cap. That 45 cap is basically going to allow you to spend that on the defensive side of the ball. We've already seen what it looks like. He can kind of shut down that Pat Sale with this 3-3-5, get some better players on the field. You see a lot of guys outrun their 3-3-5 with budget players. But you can see right here, I mean, he's got some goons just looking around. I mean, you're seeing like, obviously the must-have Sean Taylor. You're seeing the Ed Reed. I believe you're seeing some Lattimore items. There's a lot of great items on that defense. Now we're taking a look again. This is Skimbo's offense. And he's got Joe Mixon, Kenny Galladay, Randy Moss, and Julio Jones. And he is only running a chemistry on the Randy Moss in terms of his route specialist. So he's not spending a ton of cap on his guys either to get those extra routes on the field.
This is true, and it's definitely something that, roster creation is a big part of this mode. As you can see, a lot of people going with the players that most comfortable. You can see that he wanted height at all three of his receivers, with Moss and Jones and Galladay. I'm a big fan of that Galladay card. I know he popped up on a lot of people's spots. He put some cap in his tight end with Shannon Sharp. So, I like to say you want to highlight what your strengths are in something like this. A lot of times there's different type of strategies of how you build your team. If you're offensive player, some people say, I can do it with less players. I think you go to the show with what got you there, and then, kind of work on your defense from there. But everybody's got a different opinion on what they want. But you can see where most of these guys went heavy on offense first, and let me see if I can patchwork defense.
And you're seeing right there, I mean, he's not even really having to patchwork that defense. You're looking at that secondary. His lowest player in the secondary is an 89 Nitrate Lane with the physical style from that Ultimate Legend set. So, I mean, he's got a good item, very good. His worst item is a very athletic player. And as you can see, Ed Reed now coming up with his second interception of the game. And this is where we start to get into the back and forth and what made this game legendary. You saw right there, Spoto with some words you can't really say on television.
This is true. I mean, you got to be feeling good if you're Spoto right now. He showed that the first game wasn't a fluke. That went toe to toe with Skimbo, and he's got the answers for what he's got out there, and you can see this is where it starts getting into Skimbo's head. I mean, you didn't have great success the first matchup. You go down 2 scores, and to be honest, he wasn't comfortable at all. I haven't seen Skimbo, at least started this game. Spoto's on top of every one of his reads and has an answer for everything. He's matching up. The differences between sending 6 or 7 at some points, cross manning some points, and then you can see that he left some great zones on the field as well. And just the confidence is brewing for Spoto.
You see Spoto telling Skimbo right there, if you read his lips, he says, go back to the booth, talking about Skimbo doing a little bit of commentary in the last MCS event, which Skimbo actually didn't even make it to that live event. So that's why he was really capping at him and let him hear it. And now he's talking a little bit more. I mean, you can tell Skimbo does not have any comfort level for Spoto. Right there, though, you see Skimbo pretty stoic. Just, doesn't really show too much emotion at this point. But it's getting bad for him.
Yeah, that body language there where Skimbo actually stares at Spoto really shows us that he got it in his head is something that, that the discussion's there. Even though he's able to get this play, you can obviously that is something that was affecting the game.
Now we're going to go ahead and let Skimbo cap.
It's a long game, youngin', and you gotta learn. I'm in your head. You're not in my head. I just scored a touchdown. You're in my head. I just scored a touchdown.
Oh, I've never seen this from Mike Skim, Nick. We've never seen this from Skim. He's getting emotional. He is not feeling the trash talk. And he says it's a long game, youngin', and he's not lying. We got fireworks. Tell me, who do you got in the chat? Is Skim making the comeback?
So we hear RG first kind of show that this is starting to get a little bit heated as we talk about competitive Madden. A lot of these games are very emotional. We hear guys say things oftentimes on the live mics that probably shouldn't be said. But right there, you hear Skimbo go back at Spoto. It's been all Spoto at that point, and then Skimbo finds a way to get on the board right here, and he lets Spoto hear it. What are you thinking right now if you're Spoto?
He pointed to himself and says, "I'm in your head." Okay, whether or not the psychological battles going back and forth with these two, Spoto believes that. If you've watched Skimbo in the past, he's had this with other players. If you guys remember in the Don't Care About Ice, was one of the probably biggest capping sessions that people remember. Skimbo sat there and kind of grinned at it and used it as, it was a funny moment to him in the middle of a club championship game. He's got totally different aspect in this game, and I truly believe at that point he wasn't confident in his game to know that this is his to win. He was with Don't Care About Ice, but Spoto's in his head because he's doubting where the game is going at this moment.
Yeah, I totally agree. That is 100%. And I'm definitely not a great body language reader, but I could tell right there that was something from Skimbo that I'd never seen before. And then right back, Spoto with a huge dot over the top to Sharp. And now he's going right back at him. You can see that the players' lounge there is really feeling it. I personally think, if you keep it Madden, I think that capping, or capping as we call it, talking trash, I think that it's healthy for our esport in particular. It's not something you normally see in other esports all that often, but it's definitely a staple of competitive Madden. How do you feel about it?
I do agree with that. It's all about how you do it. Now, I'm going to compare two different people here. The way Spoto is doing it out of emotion, he's doing it when things happen in his benefit to really try to figure out, can I get in somebody's head? Now, somebody like Little Man is going to cap no matter what the situation is all the time. People kind of feel that as a little bit of an annoyance thing to watch, but there is some psychological things behind it. The fact that Spoto doesn't always cap every 2 seconds, I think really made this even a little bit different in the way it came out. In my opinion, it does good for entertainment, but as long as it's definitely clean and more of a way to see if you can get under somebody's skin, I think it's healthy in some regards. There is a fine line that you can basically walk, and I don't think Spota's out of line yet.
Yeah, I mean, they do have these guys mic'd up, so you can hear them quite a bit on the cast. It's one of those things where, to me, I always come back to George Carlin. If you guys have ever seen that skit, the 7 words that you cannot say, obviously not safe for work, so don't watch it if you guys are at work. I don't want to get you guys in trouble. This is something to watch in your own spare time. But typically speaking, those are the words you really can't say. And if this esport is going to grow, we kind of need to act like we are held to the FCC guidelines, at least in my personal estimate. I think there's value in having guys mic'd up. You can always show replays like you saw right there with, after a big play, the emotion. You could always pull out the good things. But this is something I went back and forth on Twitter with a number of people that are acting like I'm crazy. I don't think at all that I'm crazy. I mean, I'm somebody that is, you and I work with Mutthead. We work with trying to build this community and bring sponsors in. This is something that we know about, that these guys act like they know about. And a lot of these guys could be further from the truth, that some of the demeanor that we have on camera does impact our ability to put on a successful esport that is sponsorable, that people want to affiliate with.
Absolutely. There's good behavior and there's healthy emotional behavior. And I feel like, depending on which way you're at, can really depict the growth of our sport. If we are in a situation where we don't act the correct way on camera, that is definitely going to be something that, when people want to sponsor the event, they want to be associated with the event, that can definitely have a negative impact. Having emotion, having it to where you're keeping the audience from start to finish is a healthy thing for advertisers to want. They want you to be able to see 3 or 4 of their ads through a full broadcast, not just the first one if it's boring. So there is definitely a level of excitement you want to bring to it without going over the top. And that's something that, we really need as a community, and not let the emotion get the best of us, but also not be boring when we play.
And you saw right there, one of the admins came up to Spoto at the break right there and kind of talked to him about one of the magic words that he had said. I won't say the word, but it rhymes with witch. Obviously, there are things you can and cannot say. There was also another slip up, which I am not going to touch. I'm just going to say there was another slip up during the broadcast the day before that to me was really bad. And we can't have that in our community. And I think that's why a video like this is really nice to talk about, because there is healthy capping, and then there's capping that is just outright disrespectful, bad look for a sponsor, makes us hard to make money for these players. So that's the whole point of this. I'm not sitting here trying to be a prude. I'm not old man, get off my lawn, as Skimbo makes a really boneheaded decision right there. But I do think that, obviously there's going to be moments that we talk about from this tournament. I think 5 years from now, you talk about the Madden 17 Bowl, people are going to remember this game and the back and forth between these two players more than they're going to remember who actually won the tournament.
I totally agree with you on that. I mean, when I remember past tournaments, the person who won them isn't always the thing that stood out of the tournament for me. I went to the Madden 17 Bowl where it was actually the Madden 18 Club Championships, the one I want to talk about, where Don't Care About Ice was capping at at Skimbo. And we all remember, how he looked and how he was and how emotional it was and how the interaction was. It was the same tournament that Jay's the best father was at. It was really cool to be live, to watch him support his son. He put a lot of emotion in it. To me, those are the things that resonate more than the actual winner at the time. Obviously, a historian is going to know who won which one, but there are different moments that kind of make the tournament what it is. And I think that's really healthy for Madden. And those are things that we want to see. We just can't go over the line as far as that goes.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I think that the moments are what make the Madden tournaments great. You remember all the moments. I mean, for a certain tournament, you may not remember who actually won it. But if True Boy put on a stick display, and absolutely, we all remember, for instance, True Boy juking with just left stick, no spin move, Franchise GG out of his shoes, and Franchise looking over at True Boy and basically nodding his head like, yeah, you got me. That was awesome. Mm-hmm. We don't even remember what tournament that was. Exactly. You remember the moments. Sometimes you don't remember the winners. So I always want to remember that when I'm talking about this. There's definitely good behavior that you can have, and there's not so good behavior. But I think that what we're going to see out of this game is there were some really good moments, all things considered. And these are the things that can't go away from competitive Madden, but we've got to find a way to really curb some of the language that does get used on the broadcast, because I can't stress enough. I sound like a broken record when I say it. I'm not a prude, but I also want to put money in a lot of these competitive players' pockets working with Mutthead. And, if we're going to do this, we got to make sure that we are clean and just keep it Madden. And when we do keep it Madden, it's a whole hell of a lot of fun.
Absolutely. And I think that you can see that ever since they kind of went over there and talked a little bit to the two of them, you haven't seen any more capping, and you haven't seen anything like that. The emotion's going to still build. It's there, right? It's just kind of one of those things. Let me bottle it up for a little bit. We saw how Skimbo kind of made a bad decision and did that headfirst dive with his quarterback at the 1 and turned the ball over. We're in a spot, though, that, you got to feel that Skimbo is starting to feel that he's letting this game get away. And he doesn't have a whole lot of answers for Spoto. I mean, he's had 3 drives. He scored all 3 times while making it very difficult for, Skimbo to move the ball. So we just had a nice break in here where Skimbo was able to get the ball back. And, and this should be where the momentum changes. But you can see it doesn't exactly happen that way for the rest of the game.
Bets in the players' lounge for turnovers, push-ups. We're seeing all the guys doing push-ups. There's Papa Spoto watching his son take on Skimbo. Got another soundbite coming up here in a short minute, probably giving away what's going to happen well, maybe not, but we're going to see a soundbite here in a minute as Spoto gets a sack here on Skimbo. And, obviously we definitely want to talk about, the demeanor and the behavior and just the things people are saying on the mic. I think it's pretty evident that stuff like this is really entertaining. It adds a lot of value. We're going to see more of it. As long as we can keep it clean, I think that it's a great thing to have these mics. But if we can't, it's one of those things where it should absolutely go away, because we can't let one person saying the wrong thing impact the whole community's sponsorship.
That is absolutely true.
And here we go. Let me interrupt you for 1 second.
Keep talking. I want you to keep talking. I'm going to grow you up today. You're 17, right? You're 17? You're growing up today, boy. You don't get in my head. You know who I am? I might lose this game, but no one gets in my head. No one gets in my head. I might lose this game, but no one. And I'm going to kick it while I'm standing up on you. No one will ever get in my head. You know who I am. You know you're playing. Yeah. Oh, yeah, that's what I'm going to do. You're going to do what I'm going to do right back. Like I said, I might lose this game, but you ain't in my head. Who gets in my head? Huh?
RG, I don't know if they need us anymore. I think they can just handle it.
So, obviously, as I'm going to turn down the commentary there, nice little moment. I mean, to me, that was the moment of the tournament right there.
Yeah, absolutely. They kept it clean. You saw that there was a little bit of emotion from Skimbo that I think he's in the right. He's having fun right now. Look at the difference in the demeanor, right? Like, he's having fun trying to get into Spoto's head as a, let me see if I can use this as a momentum thing. But, these guys are, you can see his demeanor's changed, Spoto. And, all he did there was nod for the first, 30 seconds. And then he kind of gave that keep on talking, animation with his hands. there's tension here, and it's just how are they going to react? Let the game play for themselves. But to me, as a viewer, I'm enjoying this right now and saying, you know what? Let's see how these guys play with the emotion. Can they channel it to being better, or is it going to channel it to be worse?
Yeah, personally, I think that, we keep it right there. Don't go any step further. That's a very, in my opinion, that's a very sponsorable product. There's going to be a lot of people that would tune in if they saw that competitive Madden was like that. Very high tension. Every play means a lot. I call it casual trash talking because it's not to the point where like these guys aren't like personally hating each other. It's all within the game, trying to keep people off their game. To me, that's great. But let's talk about some psychology. Again, we'll act like some psychologists here for a second. Skimbo said some things in that little clip that were alarming.
Yeah, absolutely. I think and it's out of characteristic of Skimbo, and I think that's the biggest thing I want to go back to is because he really hasn't done this on his 3-belt run as being the one that's the aggressor in the words. He's had it talk to him. He's had some fun banter with Dubby in the past on the couch, but it was never anything where you saw him get in a spot that he felt that he needed to use the words instead of his game to do the talking. To me, I mean, I feel good if I'm in Spoto's position as far as where this is gone.
Absolutely. I mean, he was capping at Spoto, and he said like 3 or 4 times, I may lose this game. I may lose this game. I may lose this game, but you're not getting in my head. I mean, sorry, I'm all in. Go ahead and I'm shoving my chips to the middle of the table when I hear that.
Absolutely. If anytime you admit that there is defeat in your mind, you're doing the opposite of what your intentions were. His intentions were to tell him that you're not getting in my head, but you're also admitting that I may lose this game. That's just giving Spoto more positive energy that he is getting where he wants Skimbo to go. Obviously, this is us, analyzing this from a different perspective, not in the moment. But a lot of times what you say, it has a little bit more resonating truth behind it that you don't realize what you're saying as you're saying it.
We see that Spoto goes underneath right there. That was a risky throw there on 4th and 7, but he does get the out route for a first down. I like that read right there. You saw that he was in cloud flats. Took a nice check down. He got the animation. You see that, again, the players' lounge. They're all rooting for Spoto because nobody wants to face Mike Skimbo the deeper tournament runs.
I saw that's exactly what I saw there. I said to myself 2 things. Kiv is rooting for what a dot right there, right? He's doing the imitation of Skimbo right there too. But what I saw in the players' lounge is when you've got somebody on top, nobody wants to see him, basically separate himself from the field. He's already got 3 belts. Kiv doesn't want to see, Skimbo get a 4th belt. We don't want to see that GOAT label get even more, vast. But, I want to talk about this play. After the huge dot by Spoto, Skimbo comes back and gets a hit stick fumble. Huge momentum, change going into, the second end of the second quarter. This should have been something that he could have been able to take to his advantage. But let's go ahead and watch the rest of this quarter to show it out how it actually played out.
Yeah, I mean, it brings me to my next point. I've watched a lot of Mike Skimbo. Does that man? Oh my goodness, as he throws the ball off his lineman essentially for a pick. Does Mike Skimbo get more inside his own 10-yard hit stick fumbles than anyone I've ever seen? I mean, go back to the year where QB sneak was automatic in Mutthead League. He beats Kiv. Kiv had him beat, and he gets a hit stick fumble in a year where the QB sneak was a guaranteed 1-yard gain.
Absolutely. And even the game going into the group play against Strafen, he had 2 or 3 hit stick fumbles in that game that he walked away from that game not feeling good about the win because of all those, but he does have a knack for that for sure.
I think he just builds his team with a lot of big hitters. He's always been that way. You see right there, I mean, the players' lounge is absolutely on the edge of their seat. We're only 38 seconds to go in the first half. There's still a lot of football left here. They're rooting so heavily for Skimbo to lose. And you see that a lot in these tournaments. Like you said, obviously he's kind of the guy nobody wants to face. But I'm going to be real with you. having watched the entire tournament to this point, Spoto was 100% the guy you did not want to face, not Skimbo.
I totally agree with that sentiment. I think these guys do heavy scouting, and when you came down to it, every player that Skimbo faced as he went through the tournament was getting more and more of a beat on his offense. They were looking at past successes. What did I do in this game? How did this player do it? Skimbo was not walking through the competition like he normally does, and people were saying, wow, I don't know what to do against his offense. I felt this is the first tournament I've seen Skimbo play that it got to the point where his reads weren't automatic anymore.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think that he kind of relied heavily on one or two particular setups, and he kind of ran them in the ground. And you see right there, this is a hairy game. Spoto about shanks a point blank kick, and again, you see the admin right here as we head to halftime. And I think that is the whole point for this video is the admin right here basically curbed the talk for the rest of the game. How do you feel about that?
I honestly think that they're in the position to where they've seen things that had got out of hand prior to this game in the same tournament. I feel like there's a little bit more of a emphasis of, guys, have fun, do your thing. Again, this is the line I need to draw right now in a position of intermission. Do I feel like this is a great time to talk about it in a really high-stake game where you're trying to keep your emotion and discussion as far as your mind clear about what I need to make adjustments? They got themselves thinking about what I can't say rather than the game itself. But it's on them that it got to that point. So I kind of got mixed emotions on it. You know, it's kind of one of those deals. You kind of want to make sure that it doesn't affect their games, but they let the emotion get to that where now they need to be talked to. So they're thinking not only what play am I running, but how am I supposed to react after it?
I totally agree, because I feel like the admin got roasted on Twitter. From what I can say, they're like, "Oh, you're taking the emotion out of the game. This is ridiculous." When I say this, I said this a day prior. I put a tweet out that said, literally, we have to get the mics off these guys. We have to respect the sponsors. It's the utmost priority. And then you see a game like this where, for the most part, except for one word that was said, not the worst word in the book by any means, by Spoto, it was kept Madden, and it turned this game really entertaining beyond probably the value of the actual game. Let's be real. This game has been very sloppy. If this was a very calm game where these two weren't going back and forth and it was sloppy, it would not have been nearly as entertaining. It would have just been bad Madden.
Absolutely. I mean, we're doing this film study right now, and most of our discussion is about the energy, the emotion, the capping, because the game was very sloppy. I mean, you go ahead and Skimbo's had the fumble on the red zone, and then he threw that terrible pass. Spoto has had the hit stick fumble. The game has really not been a great game fundamentally, but the whole talk's about the emotion because of where we're at.
Exactly. And if you take the emotion out of it, you see right there, I mean, there's definitely emotion with these players. You take that emotion out of it, it just becomes sloppy Madden. And I mean, I could get that on my own couch. So,
absolutely.
It's one of those things where you've got to, you've got to figure out where that line is. And I think the admin did a good job of drawing the line, but I do think that they kind of spooked the guys off of their emotion in the second half as, you see, we go into the halftime score 16-14, Skimbo versus Spoto. And let's go ahead and kick into the second half here. We're going to go ahead and skip ahead. So now we're in the second half, and we have Spoto receiving the kick. Mind you, we're kind of now at a spot where we've already kind of foreshadowed that there's not going to be a whole lot of talk going forward, and just kind of reverts to your Madden versus my Madden. And it's still going to be a nice little second half. But at this point, we're taking the psychology out of the game and going straight back to square one. And we kind of already talked about is Skimbo's using psychology right now because maybe subconsciously he's feeling defeated. He feels like he's not in a good spot.
Yeah, he definitely feels at least he's questioning his confidence right now with that psychology, right? Spoto has played well. He's already beaten him previous in group play. He knows that what he normally goes to, Spoto has answers for it. So basically, he has to call a good game to have success here. If Depending on what there's a lot to handle in Gun Bunch, but if you've got setups that can handle most of it and off of cues, Spoto's on it. So now he's really got to sit there and say, you know what, I got to make my defensive plays, hold him to threes to get myself back in this game, because if he starts letting Spoto get touchdown after touchdown, this is going to be a tough game for him to come back on.
So it's a 16-14 ball game. Spoto doing a good job. I'll tell you what he does a really good job of. He mixes in the run as needed, although Skimbo's done a pretty good job shooting the gaps with that Ed Reed. He's mixed in the run. You see 14 rushes, 65 yards. So what is that, about 4 pop? And then, he's throwing his checkdowns. You saw he throw a smoke screen, pick up 7 or 8 yards on that. He's using the trips to the wide side of the field, making sure that Skimbo has to respect multiple underneath routes to use it with good spacing. You're starting to see both these players really settle in now that they don't have to worry about capping at one another after being talked to. It's different Madden at that point, but it's also the game cleans up quite a bit.
Absolutely. And he's run this route combination a few times. You can see that he's settling in. Instead of getting the motion of him right now, Spoto is trying to put a drive together to really put the pressure back. But what I like about that play, he's definitely taking the motion of the receiver and using the curl route to basically kind of be a buffer to where that cloud flat player can't get to him. And he's saying, you know what, all I want is 4 to 5 yards on that play. He's making good decisions to keep the down and distance short with his runs and pass. Obviously, an overthrow there stinks. Fourth and 2 is a big play in this situation to keep the momentum on his side.
I like the route combo he's been using, that whip, hitch, curl. It makes it really tough to defend. I mean, you see right here the curl. He goes right back to it. He unnecessarily threw the high ball on the previous one and put him in that spot, but goes right back to it, doesn't throw the high ball, and picks up the first down.
Yeah, he puts a lot of stress on the user defender in the middle with the opposite side. He had a corner route and the wheel underneath it. So if he wasn't set up to stop that, the user almost has to sell out to go after the wheel, which now he's got 2 players to pick, whether it's the curl or the hitch, on one defender. Great design.
So now we got 2nd down and 1 here, and he's got a really nice offense. He's got 3 98 or better receivers, no route Kims on them. He's got Walter Payton and Shannon Sharp as his tight end running back combo. And then, of course, Vic. You see what Vic does right there. Rolls out, hits the high ball corner for a touchdown. Papa Spoto happy, getting some dabs in the back from the players' lounge. Everybody rooting for his son as he kicks the extra point to go up by 9. And at this point, you're thinking, okay, maybe Skimbo's really in trouble. At this point, you actually look at how Skimbo scored. The first touchdown was basically he threw the ball down the seam. Really poor animation and coverage by Spoto allowed him to catch and run for 50 yards and a touchdown. The next one was set up by, I believe, basically set up by an interception, I believe. It wasn't as clean a stop, in my opinion. I think I'm having trouble remembering, but it was set up by bad play by Spoto more so than good play by Skimbo, is essentially what I'm getting at.
Yeah, I don't think he's had a sustained drive down the field, 8-10 plays to get his scores yet. I mean, he's had some, bang plays that he's been able to get those quick pops. So it's definitely, if Spoto can make him earn his plays, that's going to be something, you can see he had 6 completions for 220 yards. That can kind of tell you the story that he's able to get it. It definitely was a play that he threw his verticals, and it was a play that it was in the middle of the field, how he scores first touchdown, but it was set up by several big plays before that.
You see, he's running with this little route combo where he's running C route, seam, drag, and comeback route. This is really the first time I've seen this route combo all year from Bunch. In your opinion, did Skimbo bring something different to the table and it just didn't work? Do you feel like it was a bad scouting report that he was labbing? Like, what were his issues in this game?
To me, it's not a bad route combination. It's definitely something that, you should be able to get. The drag is always a dump off throw. He likes it because it goes underneath. And what you see there is Spoto's just making the adjustments. In my opinion, he may have gone to this route combination a little bit too often, to where the routes that are really tough to stop, where the Pats curl flat, and some of the different ones that, with verticals and stuff, he didn't mix those in as much, in my opinion, to establish being able to use that. I mean, I think he went to the well a little bit more often in the first game with that, and so Spoto kind of knew that all the cards were already on the table. It's just a matter of how to stop each one at the right time.
And you know what's interesting? And just a really bad read right there by Skimbo. I mean, he was looking for an open receiver on comeback logic and throws the ball straight to Spoto, fourth interception of the game. And you're seeing right now that I may lose. He was feeling that the entire way.
Yeah, he's forcing things. When do you remember Skimbo not having, the thing about Skimbo that, through his run and what has always impressed me with, he didn't miss a read. It was, I've got the flat, I'm going to take it. If I got the drag, I'm going to take it. He knew when he could take it, at what point of the field he can take it. If the guy gets to the left hash mark, he knows that, at this point, I can't take that read. Let me go to the other read. He was very systematic about the way he played in the past. I'm not seeing that at all right now in this game. And I think it's because Spoto's got the defense at the time of his read that he's throwing off all his progressions. And that's really giving him, a little bit more frustration, and he's forcing things. And that's not the Skimbo that, we've seen over the years.
Now, maybe if Skimbo listens to this will inspire him. That's not my intent here, but I'm just going to say something as somebody who's watched a lot of competitive Madden. I keep a very close eye on it. I watch basically all competitive Madden that there is to be played in this community. I watch it. There's not much, or there wasn't much of a scouting report on Skimbo coming into this. You actually take a look at his defeats in his career and trying to pick up tendencies of really how to get him. And what you find is that it's really hard to lock him up coverage-wise, but if you find the coverage, he will throw you the ball. And the reason I say this is you have to go back almost 4 years to find the last time he struggled, and that was Serious Mo. And he literally just spammed Z-Spot from Bunch that year into Mo's coverage the entire ball game, and it took until overtime for Mo to finally get that pick. But Mo had great defense for that. It's not often you see great defense for Skimbo, but what you can know out of this is that if you have it, he's going to give you the football.
Yeah, there's a couple things that resonate with me with this whole thing. Is he said something in one of his broadcasting opportunities when he was at the desk. He said, a lot of people, when he ran Bunch in the beginning, it was something that he was unique in. Now everybody runs Bunch, everybody gets more reps on it. There's not a whole lot of creative liberties that you haven't seen in his game now. I think he almost felt like he had to bring something different, and that's that route combination you were talking about before, just to kind of throw people off. But once you're in a tournament and you can go back and check, from day to day, what was he doing and how am I going to stop that in correlation with the other plays? You put a game plan around. He's not a guy that's going to do a whole lot of streaming, not a guy that's going to pop up where you can get, some, early film going in. But the adjustments people made were definitely elite. And you can see that Spoto was one of those guys that did it. The fact that everybody uses Bunch and he didn't use any route chems or enough route chems to show a special Bunch, I really felt that might have been, a little bit easier on his opponents to stop him.
I totally agree. And I think it's exactly that. That's not me burying Skimbo. I mean, I can't bury Skimbo. The guy's got 3 belts. I mean, and I'm sure he's not done. But I think that, if you're being honest with yourself and you're looking at this game, Skimbo is obviously a player that we all know is one of the best Madden minds out there. He's going to get reps in things. He's going to, master it. The issue is that he hasn't really needed secondary schemes in the past. With the number of people that run Bunch now, as you said, you almost need that secondary scheme. I mean, you see right here, Spoto's lived in trips tight end, but, he mixes in Bunch. You have to have something else to go with it.
I agree. And I think it's something that people have gotten more accustomed to it. They kind of know what you're doing. I think it's getting tougher and tougher as the years go on that you can rely on just basically calling a great game. You may know the 5 plays, the 5 route combinations that he wants to run as his base offense. And as long as he calls a good game, it's very tough that if it's, if you cover this up, this guy's going to be open. This, now that we've got, the ability for cross manning the way it has been, matching principles, different ways that, we've found ways to stop Bunch much better than the years past because a little bit more tools have been put in the game. It's time to, evaluate, exactly it can bunch, and obviously it can, but without the route chems, it's a little bit less of an opportunity to be unique. And I'm really kind of surprised that he didn't bring as more route chems to the table.
Yeah, you saw a lot of guys out there that were running route chems, like 2 or 3 elite chems on their team. I mean, the power of the elite chem. We covered on Playbook GG. I mean, it gives you corners, it gives you posts, it gives you all kinds of different routes from different spots on the field, trail routes for the tight ends, angle routes for the running back, table routes for the running back. It's one of the best chems in the game, and you see a lot of people that just basically run they don't even, I mean, you could run whatever bunch you want when you have elite. You basically don't, outside Pat Sale, you can create anything you want. And
Absolutely.
And that's why everyone else is using them. So I was very surprised to see both these guys, honestly, not running chems.
Yeah, a player comes to mind is Clef. Clef kind of was one of those guys that had West Coast Bunch in the beginning of the year, ran it without the route chems, and he was really successful. But then he was able to say, you know what, with route chems, I can take this to another level. And you saw how he was getting and building that momentum throughout, his tournament games, our Friday night footballs. You can see that, I mean, he was one that was probably one of the more fearful offenses that I've seen all year long. And he always adapted his game to the game that is playing. Skimbo's been an amazing player for years, and I don't want to judge what he's doing, what he in this tournament alone, in this game alone, because we all have had games that if you would go back on it and say, if I would have just done this differently, the game would have been different, in my opinion. But what I think is the alarming part is that he almost brought the same thing to the table, and he didn't have the same success that he's had in the past. There's going to be probably some self-reflection from him out of this, and I think
and that's scary for the Madden community. If we're going to see a more motivated Skimbo, that's terrifying.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the first thing that I see is that he didn't win his clubs with Patriots, right? And when it comes to the one belt that he did win this year, I'm trying to remember exactly which one it was. It was the
Classic.
The Classic, right? Where it was regs. It was something that you didn't have route chems. You didn't have that. Maybe he was still ahead of the competition. And don't get me wrong, he's an awesome player, and probably he's going to have votes for being the GOAT, right?
Certainly. I don't think that this changes that at all.
No, absolutely not. I just think that at some point he said maybe it's caught up. Maybe my schemes need to I need to figure out, is it the way I played, or is it the way that everybody's catching up the bunch? Whether it's the game itself or just in general, the players are. But this has got to be something that I think we're going to see a more motivated Skimbo to be more than one formation deep, or maybe even a different formation altogether.
Yeah, that's scary to think about. Obviously there's a reason compression's always been great. Bunch, tight slots, tight flex, tight doubles, split close. They've all had their heyday. I don't think compression will ever go away, but I think we're getting to a point, especially like you talked about with cross manning and a lot of these zone matching concepts, that will just convert guys from a zone drop into man lock on a certain player based off of, if they release vertically off the line. Bunch is becoming much, much harder to run. And in my opinion, it only really stayed in the meta because of the route chems. I think it would have, this year, especially with the way 3-3-5 works, I think it would have been very, very tough to run without it. I mean, you're seeing right now how tough it is for Skimbo to run it without route chems for the most part.
Absolutely. I mean, you look at that stat line. Previous to that pass, he was 6 for 18. I mean, 33%. When was the last time you saw Skimbo not be a 20 for 25 player? His precision was what really set him apart. Like, he was just locked in on everything. And, you got to tip your hat to Spoto. I know we're talking more on the Skimbo side, but he's ultra prepared for this. I mean, he, definitely made himself, and if you go to the finals, Drini didn't run bunch. Drini didn't run really the meta in which he was really prepared for. So you got to tip his hat that he was prepared for, your trips, tight ends, and your bunches throughout the entire tournament. Giving credit to both sides of the ball, basically.
Yeah, I mean, that kind of, obviously for those that didn't know, Drini beat Spoto like 41-0 in the final. That's why we chose this matchup. It was the one that most people talked about for our film study. And you see reality sets in for Spoto as he's going to move on into the semifinals. And send Skimbo home. You see right there. I mean, that's the story of the day there for Skimbo. Just kind of an exhale, and you got to tip your cap, because Spoto absolutely deserved this one the entire way.
Yeah, he did. I mean, I'm looking at just 3 or 4 of uncharacteristic things from Skimbo. That ball, he had no business throwing that high ball into traffic like that. That typically wasn't his game. The throw that after he got the fumble, that he threw that ball where it ended up being, gave the ball right back on the next play. Usually Skimbo in the past would make people pay for turning the ball over, and you like, oh gosh, if I didn't score 7 on Skimbo, I'm done.
Right.
That was the way it was before. And the one that we talked about where he was waiting for the guy to come back to the ball, naturally, and try to make a play out of nothing. All 3 of those were decisions that were not characteristic of Skimbo play. And a lot of it had to do, I think, was his reads weren't, timing to what he normally would. He had his motions up and down the entire game. So maybe he wasn't, thinking with a clarity and a locked-in approach. I mean, it's hard for us to say it, watching it from there, but the proof is in the pudding. It affected him. And that's something that, I think he may look at later and say, you know what, that's not my style. I shouldn't let somebody get to me.
Yeah, and I mean, you see right there, it's all sportsmanship at the end of the day. I mean, there's gamesmanship and then there's sportsmanship. They show both throughout the game. And it kind of just brings it all home. I'll tell you this much, though, as we're going to be wrapping this video up. You better keep the last 6 quarters of football versus Spoto. You better take that film out of the archive, because if Skimbo gets his hands on it, watch out. He's going to figure it out. He's going to come back stronger. I mean, there's a reason that Skimbo is one of the, 2 or 3 guys in this community that are affiliated with a top-of-the-line esports org. And, it brings up another discussion for probably another time. But, I mean, we're starting to see the viewership in these events. We've seen when Friday Night Football, this event did really, really well. I think we're going to see more sponsors coming in. And that's why the whole topic of this is, keeping the capping Madden. And I think it'll be healthy for the game. And we'll start to see those sponsors maybe trickle in a little bit.
Absolutely. I mean, this was sloppy Madden. We talked about it, but it was very entertaining. And I think that is something that we can't take away from the game. That's something that we need to continue to have those storylines to build our thing. And next time Spoto and, Skimbo match up, there's going to be viewership because they remembered this one, right? It's something that it's building blocks for the future to make sure that we're having not only fun playing the game, but it's at a high level. To get to your point with Skimbo and coming back stronger, I absolutely feel like this is something that, watch out world. He is, when he's at his best, I want to say he's at the top of any game. And, this is going to be a reflection game, and I'm loving to see what he does. I mean, hopefully, we see what he does in the future, and it can shape the way Madden's played. So definitely a great game to watch and talk about. And, definitely shows that the future of Madden's bright.
Absolutely. And with that, we're going to go ahead and wrap this video up. This has been our Friday film study. We've got Friday Night Football returning today. You guys are going to see that tonight. If you guys are watching this on the day this video was uploaded, tonight, 8 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Central. If you guys see this after the upload, we are live on twitch.tv/MuttHeadTV every Friday at that time, sponsored by Grubhub. We'll be back with more of these film studies next week and for the foreseeable future, because competitive Madden is only growing and it's only going to get bigger. Hopefully this video was entertaining to you guys, because it was a hell of a game to watch and also, commentate back and talk about competitive Madden. For Ant Cap, this is Zan, guys. We'll see you next week. Until then, get in the lab and good luck. If you like this video, check out one of the videos on your screen right now. And for more in-depth analysis, visit www.playbook.gg for detailed game plans written by pro Madden players. Master the game with playbook.gg.